Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire and the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is the blind blogger, Mr. Max Ivey. How you doing today, Max?
I'm doing good, Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So the number one question the audience is probably wondering, who is Max Ivey?
Okay, so Max Ivey now is an accessibility advisor who emphasizes the positive benefits instead of spending so much time talking about the potential regulatory challenges, lawsuits, those sorts of things. And he's someone who wants to show people how it can benefit their businesses to be more inclusive and to embrace accessibility. But Max Ivey then, I grew up in a family of carnival owners near Houston, Texas. All I ever really wanted to do was be in the business. But I also knew that eventually I was going to lose most, if not all, of my vision to retinitis pigmentosa or RP. I started losing my vision when I was 5, gradually at first, and then a big drop off when I went into junior high school. Then it dropped off again when I went off to college, and after I graduated from college, it was down to what it is now. Through the encouragement of friends, family members, teachers, scoutmasters, and the old show must go on approach to life, I graduated from traditional high school and college. I'm one of the few blind Eagle Scouts. I spent a few years working for the Internal Revenue Service before deciding my mental health was worth more than $15,700 a year and going back to being a carny. Until my dad passed away in 2003, I did the bookings. I helped set up and take down rides. I operated some kids' games. I ordered supplies. I was very happy doing what we were doing, trying to grow a business. After he died, our business shortly went out of business. And then I needed to figure out what to do with myself because I'm not one of those people who can enjoy doing nothing. I have seen people who can do it, but I understand it's hard work to do nothing for long periods of time. So I figured, what do I know anything about? And because I'd had to help sell my family's rides when we went out of business, I thought I could help other people sell theirs. And I started a website called the Midway Marketplace to do that. Back in 2007, when I launched the site, the internet was even less accessible than it is now. So I had to teach myself how to code HTML. And once I got to the point where I could build a website, then, starting a blog, recruiting clients, setting fees, writing copy, all the good stuff that goes along with having an online business, all of it challenging, none of it accessible, none of it easy, no money to hire anybody, but just doing one thing at a time, continuing to move forward. People said it was inspiring seeing how I took on all these challenges, and they asked me to share more about being a blind entrepreneur. And so I started a second website as The Blind Blogger, a name that was given to me by people on social media. And it wasn't a name I asked for, but back then, most people with disabilities were hiding their disabilities because they were afraid that disclosing their challenges would work against them in this new online world. And most just didn't want to take the chance. But, when you grow up a carny and you know that if nobody knows you're coming, it doesn't matter how good your rides are. So I just didn't think about it. But what I did find out is when I officially said, okay, I'll be the blind blogger, some sighted people were upset because they didn't think I needed to emphasize my vision loss to be successful. Some blind people were upset because they didn't like me using the quote blind card, unquote. But I went ahead, continued doing the work, and now the brand is an established brand. I'm considered a trailblazer and a thought leader. And most of the online world now, people that working in it that have a disability are very open about their disability. And I feel very proud to have been a small part of making that happen over the last decade or so. Since becoming the blind blogger, I've written books, traveled the country solo, usually on very small budgets. I've spoken and sung at conferences, been on hundreds of podcasts, started my own podcast called What's Your Excuse? For a while there, I taught people how to get on podcasts and how to be great guests. So I've done a lot of from being a carnival owner to an equipment broker to a life coach to a digital media publicist, and now finally to my perfect place as Yogi the Bear said in Jellystone, my perfect place as an accessibility advisor.
Wow, you gave us a lot to unpack there. What was it like growing up with a disability?
Well, when I grew up, I'd say probably up until junior high school, when my vision decreased to the point that I was declared legally blind. I don't think anybody, I certainly didn't understand it as a disability, and I don't think anybody in my family treated it that way. It was just things were more difficult for Max than they were for anybody else in the family. Back then, my grandfather had bought property in the late 60s out in the farm patches that would be suburbs now, and moved all 6 kids out there and gave each of them land to build their own houses or park their own mobile homes. So there was all of those Carney's kids together in one place. We went to school, came home, we played. So I don't really think it was a noticeable thing until, like I said, at the point it decreased to where I was legally blind. Then I had to start learning how to use a white cane, how to read Braille, how to travel with the white cane, start to learn to find ways to complete academic tasks, even though we didn't have the greatest of tools back then. I think it's, when I look back and I think, okay, in 1984, when I graduated from high school, the only real, I think there were 2 computers available. You had IBM had just come out with their first personal computer, and Radio Shack had a Tandy, but it wasn't really a computer because you had to basically code everything you wanted it to do. So it wasn't like you could run a program on it, like a word processor or something. So, no real technology like we have now. Certainly no smartphones. And in fact, before my dad passed away, for probably about 5 or 6 years, I did the bookings for our traveling carnival using a manual Perkins Braille writer and carrying around sheets and sheets of Braille paper with notes from one season to the next on it. So the technology is great. Now we have digital Braille displays that can render graphical characters. So if somebody's into math or science, they don't have to have those interpreted for them. They can access those tactily, or large screen monitors for people who have low vision but still have functional vision. So I mean, back then things were so much harder, but back then my memory was also so much better because it had to be. Worst thing I ever had in my memory is a smartphone. How about you? Yeah. So trying to do a term paper in college without a computer like what we even had 10 years ago. Just imagine trying to do something like that. I mean, and now we got people there actually producing an entire podcast, and all they got is a cell phone.
Yep. That's what I use mine on too. Just a cell phone.
I'm a late adopter. I generally take longer to start using the technology I have to its fullest. And I'm not really a tech person. I like to joke with people. I may have more than one website and more than one blog and a podcast, but that doesn't mean I know anything about technology. So I'm one of these people, like a lot of people with vision loss, where we still are more likely to have a laptop or a desktop and use it for most of our work than we are to depend solely on a smartphone or a tablet.
Yeah, like I have a laptop here, but when I try to use it for recording purposes, it's a little bit older version, and I just haven't went and upgraded, so it's. When I record, there's that pause. You know what I'm saying? So it's just quicker and easier just to use my cell phone, and I already pay for it. So instead of going to spend money on a laptop, a new one, here you go.
Right. Is it a Windows or a Mac?
What?
Your computer.
Windows.
Okay. So if you get to the point where you're sure you're never going to use it again, you should reach out to the Computers for the Blind in Dallas, Texas. They're on the internet, and they will take those computers people aren't using and refurbish them and sell them back to people with disabilities who can't afford new computers.
Awesome.
I know because a few years ago, during a period when I couldn't get funding from the state to buy one, that's how I was able to get back online for a time, was buying one built with refurbished parts. So
Awesome. I'll definitely have to write that down and keep everything ready, so when I'm upgrade, I can send that off to them.
yeah. So, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. You know, when it comes to recording, you want it to be smooth. You don't want those hiccups. I was mentioning to you that just this week I used StreamYard for the first time to do a live recording. And one of the things I found out about StreamYard is that it doesn't speak to my screen reader during the countdown. So what I did was I told my guests, I said, okay, I can't see or hear this clock. So when it gets ready when it says we're live, I want you to bang on the table. That's what they call it. That's what they call a simple accessibility hack for those of y'all following along at home. And he did it, but he didn't hit it hard enough. So I still had maybe 15, 20 seconds of live air where we weren't doing anything. So when I send out the email to my next guest, or when I talk to him before we start recording, I'm going, look, man, you got to hit this table hard. You know, I won't be able to hear it on the other side of our room. You know. But these are the kind of things we do. We have simple accessibility hacks. We have mediums, and then we have high tech accessibility hacks. And most people are familiar with things like talking computers and talking cell phones and digital braille displays and wearables that will capture images of stuff and describe them to you. Most people are familiar with those kind of hacks, but a lot of what a person with a disability does every day is just figuring out things in a way they can do them. And I wrote an article for Reviewed Magazine last year about simple hacks for vision loss. And of course, every once in a while, some of those hacks will become a thing, like when people were talking, like when one of the shoe companies decided to design a shoe that you can just slip your foot into. That wasn't because of old people. That wasn't because of the majority. That was because people with cerebral palsy and other motor control issues couldn't put their shoes on. And, somebody showed them, hey, we could do this. And then they did it. And now it's a thing. Just like, once upon a time, the only people that had GPS were blind people. We had to purchase a package called Trekker, and it cost about $700 for the package. And then you had to pay so much every few months to have the maps upgraded, because of course back then it didn't connect to the internet. So it wasn't like it could just log into whatever the latest Google map was while you're walking through your town. Every so often you had to re-download the maps and let it just update whatever it changed. So, but because of GPS for blind people, we then had talking GPS in cars, and now we have talking GPS on just about everything, So
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So what inspired you to start a business brokering used amusement park and carnival rides?
It was the only thing I knew. When you've fallen down and been kicked while you're down and you don't know if you can get up again, it's not generally the time most of us will try something we have no experience with at all. I mean, I know there are bloggers and podcasters who've started businesses around subjects that they didn't know nothing about before they started. But, I'm kind of more like the write what you know that they tell authors. And that's why I started that way. It's like, I've helped people sell rides before. I think I could do this as a profession. And so that's what I did. And the hard thing about it, though, was my business model was different than them. In 2006 and 7, 8, when I was first getting started, there were a lot more companies online brokering amusement equipment than there are now, but most of them had sponsors or were self-sponsored, so they didn't have to charge a fee. I didn't have none of that stuff, so I had to find people who would list their equipment with me, who would pay me a commission if I sold their equipment. And the very first ride I sold for I got $300 at 5%, sold for $1,500. It was a little kid's pig train. It was a train that run on track that you put together and set on the ground. It wasn't nothing fancy, but each one of the train cars looked like part of a pig.
Huh.
And sold that to a guy in Louisiana who knew my dad. That was the reason why he was willing to talk to me, is because he knew my dad. And a lot of people who knew my dad had very good opinions of him. So, and not too long after that, I made my second sale, and I kind of jumped up in the world. I went from selling a $1,500 train from a guy in Louisiana to a guy in Texas to a $50,000 simulator from a guy in Lawrence, Kansas to a guy in Australia. So, the internet can be a wonderful thing for you. Unfortunately, sometimes it can bring you in contact with customers or clients that may decide not to pay because they know that you can't come find them where they at. But for the most part, I got paid. Sometimes I got paid late, but I generally got paid. But I charged a commission of 10% on a used piece or 5% of anything new that I sold. And some people just objected to me making money off of them. And I was like, I finally actually found my niche. And my niche was older pieces of equipment in need of a lot of TLC that the owners had already tried to sell on their own or through my competitors with no luck. That was my, and I don't know, do you remember the TV show from like the 60s, Sanford and Son?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay, it revolved around, father and son who ran a junkyard. Well, most of the equipment on my website was old and broken down or needed help. My brother used to say, Max, you should just call your website the Isle of Misfit Rides, and when your site loads, it should play the music from Sanford and Son. But, that website, it wasn't the greatest website. I built it by teaching myself to code from the W3C school. The first few years, my colors were so bright, Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could have argued over them. I couldn't edit my images, so I'd have different size images on the screen with each other. But, since I focused on what I could do something about, which was recruiting clients and promoting what I had for sale and, continuing to build my network in the industry, before I started focusing on other things besides selling used rides, I sold hundreds of thousands of dollars of rides on 5 continents. But if anybody wants to see how lost I was as a webmaster, they can look up, they can go to archive.org and look for midwaymarketplace.com from 2008 or 2009. And I advise they wear some sunglasses or not look directly into their monitors or into their phone screens because it was gaudy. It was gaudy. But it got me where I'm at now. It's like that first step,
Yeah. That's what it is. It's always one step after another.
Exactly. Which is why when I overcame my fear of singing in public, basically because I had to record a video, I used to sing The River a lot, which is a song by Garth Brooks about that very subject of how, very few of us go on a straight path anywhere,
Yeah. So how did that role lead you to start educating people on accessibility?
Well, most of what I've done over the last almost 20 years now started because somebody thought it would be a good idea, or somebody challenged me to do it, or somebody flat out said I couldn't do it. And about 5 years ago, I met Alex Sanfilippo, who's the founder of Podmatch. He's also a good friend and mentor and is the first client of my services. I met him at Podfest Expo in 2019. We shared the mic during the Peachy Coochas phase. I don't remember what he talked about, but I remember I talked about interdependence or asking for help and accepting help when offered. And according to him and others that were there, Alex chased me out of the speaking venue into the lobby because he didn't want to take a chance on not meeting me after he heard my talk about asking for help. So we became friends there. And when Podmatch started, I'm still doing a lot of podcast interviews. I was one of the first people to sign up and start using it, even though it was not very accessible when it first started. I started helping him as a volunteer and then later came on as part of the team. And now I'm on the advisory board for podmatch.com under the area of digital accessibility as it applies to vision loss. So The other thing that happened is about 3.5 or 4 years ago now, I sent a thank you note to people at a company called AudioEye, which is a accessibility company, but they're big dogs. Their clients are enterprise level clients, whereas my ideal clients are SMBs and SaaS, So small and medium-sized businesses or software as a service, for those of y'all who haven't Googled those before, because I had to Google them myself at one time. So we have different ideal clients, but they replied to my thank you note by offering me a job. I tried on 3 separate occasions to talk them out of it, claiming that I was not qualified for the job they were offering me. They eventually said that they would love to have me as a content contributor. So I've been writing articles for their website. They love that I'm a great storyteller, that I weave my many backgrounds, many, former personas into my writing. But the thing they really like is how I use the storytelling to emphasize the benefits of accessibility to people that read their blog. And from there, they asked me to do some site evaluations. Last year, they asked me to host their podcast, Hearsay Shorts, which is actually their second podcast, a shorter version of their flagship called Hearsay. It lasted for about 3 months, and they've since decided that they're going to go in a different direction. But I was able to host their podcast, and I still continue to contribute to their website and articles. And also I do some social media posts and stuff like that. So it's been a really good relationship. I'm not an employee, which means I can take other work and help other companies, which I really love, because service is a big part of my brand and my identity. But like I say, about 3.5 years ago, they talked me into it, and from there, then I pitched a speaking event in Chicago for PHP Architect magazine. They turned me down, but there was a checkbox that said, "Would you be willing to write an article if we don't pick you to speak?" And I said, "Sure," because I ain't never turned down nothing free, and they said, Max, we've been looking for somebody for a while to write a regular column for our magazine on this subject. Would you be interested in it? So we had a conversation, and I went to work for them, been writing for them for a couple of years. So, more opportunities keep showing up in the area of accessibility, but I did not plan this. In fact, the first year or so that I was doing accessibility, I was not happy, because I've done changed my direction several times and just really didn't want to be in disability and accessibility. But I have a really good friend named Adrienne Smith, who I call my blogging mama, because she's been with me since the beginning. She's taught me everything I know about blog commenting and relationship building online. And she's like, Max, just because you don't want to be here doesn't mean you have to be angry about it. Now, you can either accept it and focus in on it and, let it be your career, or you can continue to fight it and do a bunch of other things at the same time. So I have finally accepted that I am an accessibility expert, that I have a unique experience, because I have built my own website. I've migrated that website to WordPress. I've built other websites. I've done a lot of content creation. So as an expert, I have a unique experience that allows me to be empathetic to business owners when it comes to trying to get them to be more accessible, more inclusive. Also, my lived experience means that while I don't have certifications, my voice still has value. And then, of course, the fact that I've been out here over a decade being the blind blogger before most people were even sure they wanted to disclose their disability online, much less make it their brand, also, gives me a lot of credibility in this field. So I am the blind blogger. I'm a trailblazing advocate for accessibility and inclusion. And I love sharing my knowledge through writing, speaking, consulting, and podcasting. And so that's where I got. And, quite frankly, one of the things that I feel like are the people with disabilities, one of the things I think we do wrong is we do emphasize regulations and compliance. We emphasize fear so much that a lot of people are overwhelmed and scared and will just decide, okay, what's the chance they'll ever get around to punishing my individual website versus how the heck do I make my website accessible? And a lot of people will just go to heck with it. I'm not going to do it. So I feel like we spend so much time on fear, the threats of regulation, lawsuits, public shame. I mean, right now the internet is awash with posts and podcast episodes on the EAA, European Accessibility Act. And yeah, it's scary. It's tough. It's going to, assuming it actually gets to the enforcement aspect of it within a year, like it's supposed to. Some people are going to be really unhappy with the financial penalties involved. And American companies are probably going to have to get used to the EAA, even though we don't live there, because if American companies that have global markets want to do business there, they're going to have to meet those requirements. So, but why do we have to talk about, the fear so much? Why can't we talk about the hope, the fact that there are so few companies that are investing in accessibility that the ones that are get the benefit? They get access to this huge market. They get loyal consumers who will advocate for their businesses. We have money to spend. We like a lot of the same things people who don't have disabilities like. We just want them to be delivered in an accessible manner so we can actually enjoy them, and so we can also actually navigate the process of buying them. And like I say, the companies that are willing to make the investment will benefit from it. Improved accessibility also helps companies raise their search engine rankings, because the search engines and the new AI bots, they're all getting better and better at testing websites against the minimum accessibility guidelines. And then, of course, the most important reason why a business should improve accessibility is their existing consumers, their existing customers and clients. Because here's the truth, y'all. When you improve accessibility, especially when you improve accessibility for digital content, you improve the user experience for everybody else that you do business with. There are so many examples of how improving accessibility has improved lives for other people, such as talking GPS for the blind, such as curve cutouts for people in wheelchairs that are now a blessing to new parents and delivery drivers. Such as, for like on one of my favorite examples is on websites. If your website gives the user the option of inverting the text, that means they can change it from black text on a white background to white text on a black background. That is really helpful to somebody with some vision loss that's using magnification. But it also helps people using mobile devices in really high or really low light. It cuts down the glare, makes the contrast easier. It's easier on their eyes. It allows them to read faster and at higher comprehension rates. So when that's just one little thing. By making that available, somebody may be buying your product beside the pool, whereas maybe they wouldn't have, just because they can invert the text and have, that white text on a black background. So there's lots of examples where improving accessibility improves user experience. One of the best places that it happens is in forums, because forums are where people mess up forums all the time, whether you're talking about accessibility or just general use, because people who build forums, they always think they know more than they do. They always put stuff in them that don't need to be in them. They always use devices that they're not familiar with how that device will actually work when somebody goes to use it. And the more I talk to business owners about accessibility in forums, the more I find out that when they go and test their own forum, which I can't believe how many people will build a form, and, an email sign up, a checkout, whatever, and not test it themselves. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to business owners. They've went and actually tried to use their own form, realized the roadblocks, and realized that they were, throwing away hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars a year out of something. And like I said, that's not even whether or not it was accessible, just whether or not it was usable by people who are able-bodied. So lots of places where, making the effort to improve accessibility can improve everybody else's lives. And the internet is so competitive. There are very few businesses like Walmart, like Amazon, like Microsoft and Apple that either have no competitors or only one. Most people have hundreds or dozens or thousands of other places somebody could go buy their stuff,
Yeah. I love how you said we're open to that redirection. That, hey, I didn't want to go in this direction, but I was led here, and I'm gonna just run with it.
Yeah. No, I did not want to be here, but once I finally accepted, okay, this could be good for me because be having a unique take in a field, an established field that's growing. And that's the other thing about accessibility is, I'm a public speaker, and I love having the mic in my hand and having a real live crowd in front of me, not the Zoom speaking stuff. I'm fine with Zoom or live when I'm talking one-on-one, but Zoom just takes all the fun out of being in front of a crowd. There's just no way that. So, and one of the things that really helped me make this decision was looking at public speaking, because I actually prefer talking about overcoming adversity, sharing my life experiences, teaching people lessons like asking for help or accepting help, deciding to find solutions instead of making excuses, being determined to find the positive in life. Those I love talking about. But of the places that will pay speakers, most of them want people with a bigger name than I have.
Yeah.
I can get free bookings, but free bookings doesn't help nobody. I mean, unless you're good at selling. A free booking is a bill for however much it costs you to get to and from an event and back. So the stuff I wanted to do that I enjoy doing more doesn't offer me as many bookings or as good an income source. Whereas the accessibility stuff, I'm good at it. I've spent a lot of my life talking about it, whether I knew it or not. A lot more people are looking to hire or book people in the field of accessibility when it comes to speaking. And most of them, when they find out, my background in this particular subject, they're like, they are interested in having me speak. I have a much more competitive chance at getting booked talking about accessibility than I do talk about adversity. So when you compare, it's the age-old thing. What do you want to do? You want to do what you love and not get paid, or you want to do what you like really well and get paid? And and I actually spoke to a guy about this time who really helped me. His name is Jeff Smith, and he's known as the KPI guy. He's another guy I met through Podmatch. He explained to me that, Max, there's 3 things you have to have if you want to be successful over time with anything. He said, first, it has to be something you're good at. Then it has to be something you enjoy doing. He said, but the final part, the hard part, is it has to be something people want to pay you for. So, I've got 2 out of the 3 either way I go, but the only way I get all 3 is to talk about accessibility. And consult and write about it. So
do you prefer speaking at conferences or the singing on stages more?
Well, thankfully, I don't have to choose. I get to do both. I'm a singing speaker. I didn't know that. I didn't explain that. Okay, so probably about 2013, 2012, I sold a carousel by getting the owners to take a video of it in operation. And I thought, if I can sell a carousel, I can sell Max. So I wanted to start doing some videos, and I gave myself a deadline of December 31st of that year. Well, it got down to December 29th, and I still hadn't recorded a video because I was still struggling with technology. I finally got to where I could figure out how to be in focus on camera and do everything. But then I was like, what do I do for an intro? And of course, I didn't have the skills to make one, especially not that soon. I didn't have the money to hire somebody. So I thought, I used to love to sing. So I decided to sing a little bit of A Christmas Carol by Nat King Cole on the entrance. And people really enjoyed it and asked me to sing more. And over time, I noticed that they listened to more of the video when I sang than they did when I talked. So I started recording myself singing some of my favorite songs, most of them old country. And then then I heard this song Better Together by Luke Combs, which I liked the song, but I didn't like the chorus. So I rewrote the chorus. Part of his chorus is something like, it's like a match made up in heaven, like good old boys and beer. And I spent about half my life on traveling around the country where we had good old boys and beer. And trust me, it was never heaven to my way of thinking. So I decided to rewrite it, and I think I did a pretty good job. I came up with like having s'mores around a campfire or cotton candy at the county fair, and me as long as you're right here. So I recorded it. I posted it. I've made a point to make sure him and his people have seen it. Nobody's ever sent me a cease and desist letter. So either he ain't seen it still, or he don't mind. I'm not sure which.
Well, that's a good thing, at least.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because you get in trouble with them cease and desist. You know,
Yeah.
the fees can add up in a hurry. So a friend of mine said, Max, why don't you try writing your own song? And I'm like, I don't know how I would write my own song. And she said, well, why don't you do it the way you do everything else? Why don't you just do it a little bit at a time? And I was like, well, dang it, I can't disagree with that. I'd like to disagree with it, but I can't. So I wrote a song called If You Don't Ask, which was based on a lesson my dad taught me. You know, we had an 8-ride carnival. We were in Texas where everybody had more than we did. So the only way we could get booked was to just ask everybody. And when I would get tired of asking the next person on the phone or getting told no, he would say, hey, Max. Actually, he'd say, Maxie, I'm a junior. So he'd say, Maxie, now, if you don't ask, they can't say yes. So shut up and call it next number. And that's why the song's called "If You Don't Ask," and it's about how if you don't ask, they can't say yes. And you know, it's got lines about, you know, people helping you move, washing your dog, saying "I do." It's a good song. And then the editor of my books, I've written for, you know, nonfiction, mostly personal experience type things. And she's like, Max, you know, you're known for this expression. And this is not an expression I came up with. This is an expression that was hung on me by people on social media. And if I ever find the dirty dog who done it, they're going to be in trouble. On the line, people started saying, you know, Max, you do all these difficult things. If you can do it, then what's my excuse? So, you know, it got to be people say, if Max can do it, what's my excuse? Well, that became, what's your excuse? And that became an autobiographical song about my life from growing up in the Carney to being a speaker. And I even wrote a verse recently about being a podcaster. And you know, and then a while back, I've just in the middle of the night, you know, sometimes you're awake and you can't go to sleep. And so I hum and I sing, and I was playing around. And I come up with a song called Don't Wait on Someday. And I personally think Don't Wait on Someday is perfect for this show. And I hope you'll let me sing part of it before we finish.
Yep. I'll give you time for that.
All right. So
there at the end.
So Don't Wait on Someday is just all about how it ain't never going to be the perfect time. So we need to just go ahead and do it as good as we can now, do it better as we go along, because someday is not a real day, you know? So, and that's my latest song. So I wrote songs that I could sing on my podcast and also during public speaking, because before I wrote my own songs, I'd go out there, I'd give a talk about interdependence, and I'd finish by singing part of Daddy Frank, which is a song about a blind musician and his deaf wife who used to do the driving, and he made the living. Or if I gave a talk on overcoming adversity, I'd sing part of The River by Garth Brooks, especially that second verse about how, you know, we can't put things off until tomorrow. And once I wrote my own songs, then I started singing my own songs when I speak or do podcasting.
Yeah.
And, the hardest song to write, though, was one for my new podcast, The Accessibility Advantage, because disability and accessibility and advantage, them some hard words to rhyme, brother.
They still go together, huh?
Hard words to rhyme, but I finally got it done, which is good, because I think I'm at the point now where I'm so comfortable singing, even though at one time I was really scared and didn't do it for over 20 years. I'm so comfortable at it now, I think I would feel naked if I had to record my podcast without me singing something, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was hard. And I would say, you know, if I look back over my career, one thing that has really made a lot of the difference is I've managed to make connections with some really great people, either in person or online. And they've been the kind of people I could trust to tell me the truth, even if I didn't want to hear the truth. And they've helped me make some of these changes. Like Adrian Smith, and realizing that I'm an inspiration, and that that I needed to accept I was an accessibility expert, or Alex, for helping me understand that the work, once I accepted that I was an accessibility person, then, Max, you really need to come up with, either change or come up with a new podcast. So, I've had people who sent me emails to suggest that I try things. I've had lots of people who've been there to help me do things. And, it's just really a matter of continuing to show up. There are days I don't like to, that I don't really want to do the next thing. And those are days when it's really good to have a good community. It's also good to have some good distractions. So, like audiobooks, like a little bit of exercise, nothing too crazy, being able to sing and write songs, being able to go outside, listening to my local sports teams lose. I'm a Houstonian. We're still not sure they won the World Series, if that tells you anything about how frustrated we are as sports fans in this city. But it's just continuing to do. And I feel like the three things I talk about the most when it comes to just getting through things is asking for help and accepting help when offered. That's a hard thing for most people to do. And so I have this expression I like to make sure I share with them, because I think it makes it easier when you can put the focus on the other person. So for that one, the expression is, when you refuse to ask, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received from helping you.
Yeah.
Take the focus off
That's
yourself.
great advice.
Yeah. And then the second one, finding solutions instead of making excuses. I don't have an expression for that one, but I let people know, there are lots of solutions. The problem is most people are looking for a solution that they'll enjoy. But in the beginning of something, your solutions are all things that you don't want, you don't like. They're hard, they're greasy, they're dirty, they make you look bad. So I like to say, when it comes to finding solutions, life ain't the Olympics. They aren't going to give you style points, so stop trying to win them. You know what I mean?
And that is the real truth, that you're going to look stupid at first when you're trying something.
Yeah, but the great thing, especially for podcasting and content creation, is generally looking stupid is one of the quickest ways to draw an audience.
Yeah, it's a different change of perspective if you look at it the right way.
Yeah, and the thing is, there are so many people who haven't been able to find the strength or the time to do what you're trying to do. So you automatically have the respect of people who know, I'd like to do that, but I'm scared of it. Or there's no way I'll ever have time in my day to do it. Or if I did it, nobody would like it. So for all those people sitting at home that, either can't or won't have a podcast or a blog or write a book or whatever, they see people like me and you doing this, and we screw it up, and they're like, well, at least they're doing it, even if they're not
trying.
100% right. And so over time, people enjoy watching somebody, figure it out, work their way through it, learn their craft over time. I mean, when I first started recording videos for myself, I used the camera in the laptop, which means the camera was pointing up at my nose. My lighting was always bad. I used the microphone built into the computer, which I have people still cringing when they hear me say that. But I try to keep things simple. So using the built-in technology works for me, and finding a software option that works for me and sticking to it is another thing that works for me. And then the third thing I talk about a lot is determined positivity. And I'm not trying to say that you should ignore depression or hard times when they come. But if you have a practice of finding the positive in life, when you do need to overcome really challenging circumstances, it'll be there to help you get through it a little more quickly. And for that one, I do have an expression, which is finding the positive in life is like finding the TV remote. It's there somewhere, and you just keep looking for it till you find it.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with our daily lives. There's always at least one thing positive that will happen, no matter how bad your day is. There's usually always at least one, but you got to be looking for it. You got to train yourself. You got to be able to recognize it and accept it when it happens. And sometimes that's really hard to do. some days it's easier than others to find them, but it's like any other technique for getting through the fire. If it's something you do on a regular basis and you build it up as a habit, you build up those mental and emotional muscles, then when you have a really bad setback, you can make it through. And I had a pretty bad one last week. I was in Chicago helping some friends of mine promote their new film about OCD called Playing Hopscotch with My Brain. It's a part of their team has OCD, so it's part documentary. It's documentary, but it's part autobiographical. And I fell on a sidewalk and couldn't get myself back up again. And they couldn't get me back up again. And while I'm sitting there on the ground thinking, this is not good, two guys walk over from across the street. One of them is a Navy corpsman. The other is a sports medicine doctor who's still got his scrubs on. They help me get up and make sure I'm stable. They get me back to where we were staying. And the rest of that day, I'm like, man, this was not good. This made, I spent the rest of the day somewhere between, I should have stayed home. I should stay home. I should work on improving my physical health, or next time I should plan my own adventures. So going back and forth through those different things during my brain was hard. But the next morning I got up and I thought to myself, how many people lying on the street like that in cities all over America, people would just sit there,
watch you,
continue to eat their lunch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I'm very blessed that people got up to help me. And of course that they were qualified to help me.
Yeah.
Or as one of the people was there at the time said, man, Max, when you call on the angels, you call on the angels,
Yeah.
You guys around, you get the first string. So, But the next morning, by the time the next morning it hit, I was like, okay, obviously this is not the best situation, and this can't happen again, or it really shouldn't happen again. But I put it on my mind, was able to enjoy the rest of the weekend because I knew that I was with people who weren't going to leave me to myself. The two guys I was there with, they were looking out for me. From that time forward, they made sure wherever we went, we found ramps instead of curbs. Wherever we went, we found elevators instead of stairs. That when we did have to use curbs and steps, that we took everything really slowly, like we were defusing a bomb or something. You know what I mean? And again, that there could have also been negative, but the fact that it's like, hey, these guys are showing love to me. You can see things like that as positive rather than as suffocating or smothering, or as being treated like a China doll, I think is the old expression. So it's all in how you see things, and the more practice you have in finding the positive and seeing the world more with your heart and a little less with your brain, when you have these really challenging setbacks, you can get through them a lot easier if you have a practice of finding the positive, and also if you have some good friends either with you or that you can connect with over the phone or the internet. So
yeah,
those are the three things I talk about all the time. If you can get one of those three mastered, you can really have a much better experience as you're trying to get through the many challenging things. Because I'm sure it's not just business owners. I'm sure there are people in your audience that are trying to do things creatively, trying to get a degree, trying to get healthy, trying to find an apartment, trying to raise kids, whatever. And these things are not original ideas of my own. They're things I learned from my father and from other people that I've met along the way. But they're very simple things that when we do them over time, they can definitely build up to where they can help us when we really need them. And if you notice there, I said when we do them over time, because there's sometimes Max has to remind himself or be reminded, hey, Max, what did you do when you were successful? Well, I did. Yeah. Why aren't you doing that today? So I like to say quite often that the most important lessons in our lives, we often have to relearn more than once.
Yeah, that is so true. So, Max, how can people get a hold of you?
Sure. So if y'all wanna see the work that I've done as far as inspiring others and read stories of my many setbacks and challenges and how I got through them, then you can go to theblindblogger.net. That's theblindblogger.net. If you want to find out more about accessibility and inclusion, especially digital accessibility, you can go to theaccessibilityadvantage.com, or you can also go to my LinkedIn profile. I'm Maxwell Ivey on LinkedIn, and that's Ivey as in Victor EY. So eventually hoping to get everything under one website somewhere, so I don't have to do this again in the future. But you know, when you're not a skilled webmaster, sometimes it takes a little longer than you like.
Well, progress over perfection, huh?
Exactly. Yes. And I really appreciate that you said that, because that, if there's one thing people can remember, whether we're talking about overcoming the challenges in your life, or we're talking about improving the accessibility and inclusion of your organization, it's progress over perfection. It's sincere effort over mandatory regulation. It's, are you sincerely caring about yourself or another human being and taking steps on a regular basis to make improvement in yourself or improvement in other people's circumstances? So I don't know where that came from for you to say progress over perfection, but that's definitely applicable in my life and in, you know, what we've been talking about today.
Yeah. Awesome. So final thing for us here today is for you to build out some of your song for us.
So here we go. Someday's not a real time or even a real day. Won't find it on your calendar or on a clock's face. Someday's what we tell ourselves when in the wrong place. Will you wonder next year why it still ain't someday? 'Cause you'll never have enough courage. You'll never have enough time. You'll never have enough money. You'll never have enough spine. Just do it as good as you can and do it better the next time. 'Cause if you're waiting on that someday, you'll be waiting the rest of your life.
Awesome. Thank you, Max. Hey.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate your time. And, you know, I wouldn't be where I'm at without a lot of great people like you who've given me an opportunity to come on their podcast and get in front of their audience. So I want to make sure I thank you for being part of my continuing journey and my continuing story.
Hey, it's our pleasure to host you, man. You're truly an inspiration. Show what somebody who has that no quit attitude and rises up in every challenge that's thrown at them.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.